Hello Fantasy Managers, and welcome back to another video from myself, Will, and fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. In this video we're going to be going over my best picks for Double Game Week 30. Let's get to it. Okay, just a reminder of the fixtures before we get into the transfer tips section. As I'm sure you already know, there are 4 double game week teams. You can see the fixtures up on there. I won't go through them. A couple of things that are worth mentioning is the quick turnaround between games. Manchester City, for example, have a 5-day break between their match against Arsenal and their Monday match against Burnley. Whereas Arsenal, for example, only have a 3-day break between their match against Man City and their match against Brighton. So with that in mind, you would expect there's going to be more rotation actually with Arsenal's ARTETA rather than Pep's Manchester City. If you're not quite sure on chip strategy, I'll leave a link to my chip strategy video in the description below. For my chip strategy, I'm going to be playing my free hit, so I'm going to be loading up on as many double game week assets as I can get my hands on. That means I'm going to be going for a full starting 11 of double game week players. I know that some people are thinking about going for some single game week players, and I do kind of understand that, given the fact that there is going to be a lot of rest and rotation. What I would say, though, is that there aren't any single game week teams that really stand out. You know, you might look at the likes of Liverpool, but they play Everton away, which is a little bit of a tricky fixture to say the least. Everton are going to be up for it, and they're playing well under Ancelotti. Potentially could look at Chelsea, you know, Aston Villa away. That's a fairly favourable fixture. They also offer some decent value. So I think if I were going to go for some single game week players, I might actually look towards Chelsea. The other thing worth mentioning about fixtures is there's been a lot of talk about the death of the home field advantage. And that's primarily come from the Bundesliga, where actually teams are performing better away from home. So I saw this interesting tweet by Wee Rogue, who recommend giving it a follow, by the way. He's comes up with some great little bits of information. So he looked at this from expected goals point of view, and he found that there's very little difference between pre and post lockdown. His effective conclusion was that it was a bit of a quirk in the data, and it was due to a small sample size, and effectively that people weren't taking their chances in those home matches. Okay, with that out of the way, I'm going to move on to my most nailed pick, and that is, of course, Kevin De Bruyne. It'll come as no surprise. You know, he's probably going to be leading the captaincy poll. He has been one of the top performers this season. As you can see in the charts there, he's got the most big chances created this season by a long way with 24. Trent Alexander-Arnold coming in second place with 16. He's going to be fighting out to get the most assists for a Premier League season. He's already got 18, and I think he could be going for that Thierry Henry record. So I'm not going to go over that in any more detail other than he should be in your teams. And if he is not getting in your teams, the only question really is whether to captain him or not. And I'll probably come to that in another video on this channel, so make sure that you are subscribed. The other player which might not be quite so popular that I really like is actually Raheem Sterling. From a statistical point of view, he hasn't actually had a bad season. Compared to last season, it's not quite up there, but still his numbers have been pretty impressive. You look at him compared to De Bruyne there, and actually his expected points per game is actually higher. He's got higher expected goals. He's got more big chances. He's got more shots inside the box. These are all the numbers that you were looking for. For some reason, it hasn't quite worked for him this season. But, you know, looking at the rumours on training and stuff, he does seem to be playing really well in training. And hopefully this rest will have given him, you know, a little bit of time to reflect and rejuvenate and come back fit and firing. So just to highlight that again, this is expected points per start for midfielders. And as you can see, Mo Salah coming in on top with 7.2 expected points per start. And that's actually been pretty close to what his actual points are with 7.15 points. So that's just showing that his expected points are very close to his actual points, and he's having a good season. Interestingly though, Sterling coming in second for midfielders in terms of expected points per start with 6.7. Now, this is really high. You know, beats all the rest of the other contenders, you know, likes of Son and Mane, Mahrez, De Bruyne, as we mentioned, Marshall, every other midfielder in the game, almost every other player in the game, in fact. But the big difference there is that his actual points per game has been considerably lower than his expected points per game. So you can obviously look at that in two ways. You can think, well, he hasn't been performing, so why would he start performing now? But personally, to me, I'm going to look at that the other way and think that he's got the underlying numbers there. He's got the capability, shown the capability in previous seasons. We know that he's going to be fairly nailed on in that Pep side, at least as nailed on as, you know, a forward or striker can get. You know, probably De Bruyne is probably the more nailed on. But, you know, you're going to expect Sterling to get a fair chunk of minutes. Obviously, he's got to compete, you know, with the likes of Mahrez and Sane and all those other good midfielders that Manchester City have, but I still think that he's going to be, the main one there. And as I said, he's been playing well in training. So for me, I think that he is pretty much a lock in my team. Moving on to Manchester City forwards, and again, this is sorted by expected points per start over the entire of last season. And as you can see, interestingly, Gabriel Jesus coming out on top there with 7 points per start. And I should say this is for all forwards. So when he does start, he is expected to do well. As you can see, Aguero coming in second with a very impressive also 6.4. I would say that Aguero is more likely to start, and as you can see there, that is reflected in 17 starts compared to Jesus' 13. And that's also kind of reflected in the statistics there. Jesus, he's not quite matching his expected points. Is that because he's not as good a finisher as Aguero potentially? I think Jesus could be an interesting option. The main concern with him though is not really his expected points or his actual points. It's just mainly his game time and whether he's going to get those starts. So for me, I think Aguero is the forward to go for, and that pretty much locks out my Manchester City players. I think I'm pretty much set on De Bruyne, Sterling and Aguero. I can't really see too many reasons to go past those guys. Obviously, there's likely to be another Manchester City player that does well. That could very well be Jesus. It could be the likes of Mahrez. It could be the likes of Sané. It could even be one of their defenders in Laporte. But for me, I want to go into that double game week with the 3 players that I think are going to do the best. And those are the 3 main guns from Man City. And personally, I think that's got to be De Bruyne, Sterling and Aguero. I think those 3 are locks in my teams. Let me know in the comments if you're thinking similar or you're going for a different route. Before we move on to Arsenal assets, just a quick reminder that we have a never before seen for Hub 90-day free trial. You can access this tool, you can access the comparison tool that I've featured, completely free for 90 days, no obligation to continue with the membership after that. I'll leave a link to that in the description below and also in the information card above. Okay, so this is Arsenal and this is their entire season to date. And as you can see, Aubameyang, he's got the highest expected points, he's got the highest actual points per game. And, his stats across the board have been very, very impressive. Interesting, Pepe coming in second place there. He's got good stats across the board. His actual FPL points haven't been quite so impressive. So that's Arsenal's season to date. What I do think is potentially more interesting, though, is actually Arsenal's season under Arteta. And there aren't massive differences here. I think the main one to kind of flag up, though, is actually Pepe. His expected points has increased slightly to 5.2. He's ahead of Aubameyang. His actual points has also increased. So he's converting more of those chances and converting more of those statistics. And also, he's been getting a lot of appearances under Arteta. He's getting a lot of starts. And he started 7 out of those 8 games that Arteta has managed. That's more than likes of Aubameyang. So based on these statistics, I think that there's actually a strong case to include Pepe in your team. I know that Aubameyang is the main man, but he does come with that extra price tag. Ideally, you're going to be squeezing in both Pepe and Aubameyang. But if, like me, you haven't necessarily got a really high team value, then I think that it is kind of interesting to consider Pepe. And for me, I think that I'm going to give a lot of thought of whether to go Aubameyang, whether to go Pepe. Potentially, you could still go for both of them. I think the comparison between them is interesting. And as you can see, they're actually pretty closely matched. Pepe coming out there with more expected assists. Aubameyang coming out with higher expected goals, which kind of you would expect because Aubameyang's the forward and Pepe is the one providing those goals. Although Pepe's expected goals isn't too bad either. He's also creating a lot of chances, creating a lot of key passes. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, you have got to watch for that Arsenal rotation because there is a very, very short turnaround between their double game week matches. And of course, one of those matches is Man City as well. So do you really want to be spending 20 odd million on 2 players which have that consideration? I'm not quite sure. So personally, I'm actually leaning towards going for Pepe at the moment. I'm not setting that. I still could go Alba. I do think that he is a very strong option. And of course, he is probably more likely to get more minutes. Although, looking at the history of Arteta, potentially Pepe could also get a fair amount of minutes. Going back again to the statistics under Arteta, and I think it is worth pulling out a few other players. I think Leno is a good option in goal. I do slightly prefer Henderson, but I think that he's a strong option. I haven't ruled out going for him either. Lacazette, for me, I just think there's too much risk of rotation there. He's one of those players that could, of course, bang a brace in at any point. So, if you're wanting a little bit more of a differential, then you could certainly go for Lacazette. I think potentially also, for the differential route, Ozil could be an interesting shout. He's got 8 starts in Arteta's 8 matches today. And I think that Arteta obviously really likes him and he has been playing well. His statistics aren't too bad there either. And he comes in a lot cheaper than the likes of Pepe and Aubameyang at just 7.3. Saka also, he's been playing really well recently. Obviously, a really young guy who's got a lot of potential, been playing excellently, and I fully expect that he will be an important part of that Arsenal lineup. He has obviously got that risk of rotation, which is considerably higher than the main guys there, but you're only playing 4.7 for him. So I do think that he is an interesting option, and I'm certainly considering him for my team. In terms of the defensive side, I'm actually considering David Luiz. I think he's probably the pick of the bunch. You could look at the likes of Tierney, but I just want somebody who's nailed on and is going to play those two matches. And I think that David Luiz is really the only defender that offers that. Moving on to Sheffield United then, and this is really all about the defence and, of course, their goalkeeper. And, many people have ruled out Lundstrom because he's likely to get rotated, and while I agree with that, I also think that he is likely to score goals and get assists. Even for the warm-up games, I think he scored a brace in a recent warm-up game, so I do think that for me, he's pretty much a lock in my team just for that explosive nature. And as you can see, expected points there, 5.5. For a 4.9 defender is pretty impressive. I wouldn't consider McGoldrick. He's unlikely to start. Stevens, I think, is a fantastic shout, and he's probably going to be a lock in my team. Egan and O'Connell are very, very solid options as well, coming in a little bit cheaper. So if you do want to save a few pennies, there's not much between, the likes of O'Connell and Egan and Stevens, to be honest. I think Stevens probably offers a little bit more in terms of the way of goal threat. So that's probably why I'd edge towards him, but if you are looking to save the pennies, then O'Connell and Egan are good shouts as well. Henderson is my goalkeeper of choice at the moment, and I just think that he offers those save potential and, is a really good way into that Sheffield United backline. What I would say is I will be going triple Sheffield United defence. I think that, they've got good fixtures. They've been proven to be good defensive assets. They've got a fair amount of time between games. And of course, they're still going for one of those European spots. So I think the value for them is in their defense, and I'm pretty much set on a triple up. At the moment, I've got Lundstrom, Stevens, and Henderson. I haven't completely ruled out O'Connell or Egan either, though. Moving on to Aston Villa then, and their talisman to steal from our friends who got the assist. And of course, that is Jack Grealish. His goal involvement, interestingly, for Aston Villa is 54%. So when they score, he's very, very likely to be involved. And I really want that player in my team. Obviously, Villa scrapping it out for relegation. So they're going to be going for those goals. They've got to score goals for survival. And Grealish, of course, is such a big part of that. So he's an absolute lock in my team. The other players from Villa, and this is where I become a little bit less certain. You've got the likes of McGinn. I think he's a fantastic pick, but he's coming back from injury, and is he going to get the minutes? Currently, he's squeezed into my draft just because of the value that he offers and obviously that potential for scoring goals. Ghazi's another good shout though, and I think that he's probably slightly more nailed on in terms of minutes. Probably slightly less of a threat though, so you've got to balance those two up. In defence, you've got the likes of Target. I think that he's a really good shout, and he's certainly one that I'm considering. The real outlier that I've seen in a lot of teams, and I've had in my draft as well, is Samatta. Now, he hasn't played a huge amount for Villa, but we are expecting him to be start because they don't have too many other options up front now. So I think that he's an interesting shout, and obviously he's very friendly on the budget, and he is likely to get a lot of minutes, and Villa have got to score goals. So there's a lot of reasons there that people are going for him, and I certainly could consider myself going that route. The other option, of course, is to go for a single game week player, someone like Tammy Abraham, who's obviously squaring up against Villa, and I think that he potentially could be a good route as well. As I said earlier, I'm not that keen on single game week players, but this is one position where I might be tempted to go for someone like Tammy Abraham. And that's it for this video. If you do want to see more videos like this, then please like, subscribe, turn those notifications on and all that good stuff. Just another cheeky plug for our 90-day free hub trial. You can access all these resources completely free for 90 days. Link in the description and in the information card above. Bye for now.